Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military of a Summary channel. In this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And this morning the most important updates are coming from Moscow, where talks between the Russian Federation and the United States of America were taking place. And here in this video we can see the moments when the representatives of the United States of America landed in Moscow. Witkoff and the US President's son-in-law Kushner are expected to discuss the settlement of the Ukraine conflict with Putin. So this is the moment when the delegation arrived at the Kremlin. The vehicles, as you can see, arrived at the Kremlin under the protection of the Federal Protective Service. The US Special Representative and Trump's son-in-law arrived for talks with Vladimir Putin. And this is exactly the moment when Putin met with the Americans. And by the way, this time at the same time, and meanwhile, the Ukrainian delegation is already heading to the Emirates for talks with the US and Russia. And these talks are going to take place today on the 23rd of January of 2026. And these are going to be probably first talks since the end of 2022. So this meeting between the US and the Russian Federation started at approximately 11:20 p.m. and according to sources, they lasted more than 3.5 hours. That was stated by the Kremlin. Later, the special aide Ushakov made a lot of very interesting statements, and he said that Russia will continue the special military operation until a settlement can be achieved through political and diplomatic means. Furthermore, he stated that Putin, Witkoff, Kushner and Grunbaum stated that Witkoff, without resolving the territorial issues, a long-term settlement is impossible. It was agreed that on Friday, so today in Abu Dhabi, the first meeting of a trilateral working group on security issues with the participation of representatives from Russia, the United States of America and Ukraine would take place. Russia's negotiation group on security issues has been formed and will fly to the United Arab Emirates in the coming hours. So today most likely are going to talk about frozen assets first of all. And I believe that they will try to talk about not just frozen assets, but about the energy truce. Ukraine needs energy truce. Ukraine needs to force the Russians to stop bombing and attacking the energy infrastructure of Ukraine, because it seems that currently everybody in the world understands that the next attack could be the last attack for Ukraine. As for the situation in the energy sector of Ukraine, during the previous 24 hours, we received lots of very important updates. For example, part of Kryvyi is without power due to a power grid accident. This situation took place yesterday and this article was published in the evening. And the city of Kryvyi is located in the western part of Ukraine. Another important video, the sources reported that over the last few hours, Russian Grand 3 jet drones have been attacking the Kyiv 750 kV electrical substation near Nalivaykovka, Kyiv Oblast. So sources are saying that the Russians were trying to destroy this substation, and most likely this substation was destroyed. Furthermore, according to information we have, just during the previous night, just during the previous 24 hours, the Russians used 101 drone. But when talking about this batch of drones, mainly the Russians were attacking the city of Kryvyi Rog. We have already discussed this situation. This is the article that was published by pro-Russian sources, and here we can see lots of explosions, lots of attacks. The Russians were attacking the city of Kryvyi Rog, and the local sources are saying that the combined attack on Kryvyi Rog lasted about 25 hours. Imagine yourself, 25 hours the Russians were attacking the city, and the Russians used for those purposes 70 drones and ballistic missiles. Due to the shelling, more than 90 miners were trapped in the mines, and the sources are saying by the morning the Ukrainians managed to get them on the surface. So that was the biggest attack on the city of Kryvyi Rog. I would like to remind you that the city of Kryvyi Rog is something like a homeland for the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, and currently there is a huge blackout on the territory of the city without most likely any chances to restore the situation. Another important statement was made by the mayor of Kyiv. He stated that there is a high probability that Russia will continue its attack on Kyiv's energy infrastructure. The situation is very difficult. Stock up on water and medicine, and those who can should leave the city. That was stated by the mayor, and this is a very interesting situation because once again today there going to be a meeting on the territory of the United Arab Emirates. So it seems that everything is okay. The parties are about to finish the conflict, but at the same time, most likely the mayor of Kyiv has some insights about possible future attacks, and he doesn't believe that we are going to see some breakthrough in the negotiation process on the territory of the United Arab Emirates, and most likely after this meeting failed, the Russians will attack the territory of Ukraine. Another important thing is that today, this was stated by the situation on the 22nd of January, yesterday was the most difficult day for the energy system in Ukraine since the blackout in November 2022. The situation is extremely serious, said Energy Minister Shmyhal. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground. During the previous 12 hours, we received lots of very important changes. And first, let's talk about the Zaporozhye direction. There are still very heavy clashes for the settlements of Staroukrainka and Zaliznychne. The Russians during the previous 12 hours managed to improve their positions once again. This is, for example, the situation by the end of the 20th of January, this is the 21st of January, this is the 22nd, and this is the beginning of the 23rd. The Russians are tightening the news around the settlement of Zaliznychne, trying to get as close as possible toward the settlement from many directions. Today, pro-Ukrainian sources published this video where we can see how Ukrainians were attacking positions and forces of the armed forces of the Russian Federation in this area. Based on this video, we have adjusted the map. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Dnipropetrovsk direction. During the previous 12 hours, we received lots of very interesting updates from this area as well. As we can see, the map has been adjusted significantly. During the previous 12 hours, we received lots of updates that the Russians continue their offensive operation in this area, and we received this video published by pro-Ukrainian sources. Here we can see how FPV drone operators of the armed forces of Ukraine were attacking Russians, let's say in the western part of the city of Novopavlovka. So the Russians continue advancing, and most likely in coming hours or in coming days, the Russians will finish the battle for this territory. Another important thing is the Dobropolye direction. During the previous 12 hours, here we received additional changes as well. So as you can see, the situation still remains tense in the area of the village of Grishna. So these are the changes on the ground between the previous days. So this is basically the moments when the Russian major offensive operation in the area of the village of Grishna began. First, the Russians improved their positions along the Olympiyskaya Street. Then Russians improved their positions in the southeastern part of the settlement. Then the Russians managed to advance further in the direction of the central part of the settlement. Then Russians began advancing in the southern part of the village, and today, according to information we have, the Russians improved their position significantly along railways and along M30 roads, which are located to the south of the settlement of Grishna itself. The Russians are advancing, and obviously they are tasked to finish the battle for this territory. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Liman direction or in the Slavyansk direction. During the previous 12 hours, additional changes on the ground were recorded. First of all, and this is very important, pro-Ukrainian sources confirmed that Russians managed to improve their position significantly in this area. And furthermore, according to pro-Ukrainian sources, you will see that they have adjusted the gray zone in this area, expanding the gray zone further in the western direction on the positions of the armed forces of Ukraine. So according to pro-Ukrainian sources, lots of trenches, lots of tree lines were captured by Russians, or first sabotage and reconnaissance group of the armed forces of the Russian Federation were recorded there. Another important update is coming from the territory to the east of the city of Slavyansk. We are talking about the Slavyansk power station. Pro-Ukrainian sources published lots of videos of how Russians were bombing and attacking the territory of this power station with aviation, with artillery, with all weapons and all means the Russians have. As you can see, we received lots of videos. The Ukrainians are using the territory of the power station for their forces, for arms, for weapons, and then Ukrainians send the reinforcements, additional support in the northern direction with the purpose to stabilize the situation around the city of Liman. So that is why the Russians basically began reducing to ruins the power station, which means that most likely the cities like Kramatorsk and Slavyansk will have no electricity or will lose electricity and power within the next days. At the same time, we continue receiving updates about additional changes and by additional offensive operation from the Russian side in the area of the city of Liman. So these are the changes on the ground between the dates. The Russians, as we can see, managed to improve their position significantly in the southern part of the city of Liman during the previous 36 hours. These are the changes on the ground between the 21st and the 23rd of January of 2026. The Russians managed to enter the city and the Russians continue advancing. Furthermore, several neutral mappers reported that the Russians began flanking maneuver with the purpose to cut the next line that Ukrainians use for logistics. So we are talking about this line. The Russians are tasked to cut this road physically and to probably reduce the logistics capabilities of the armed forces of Ukraine. So we see that the battle for the city of Liman is entering its decisive and the final phase. Furthermore, we received updates from the north of the city. During the previous 12 hours, pro-Russian and neutral mappers adjusted their maps in this area. Based on their reports, we added additional gray zone. Now let's talk about the northern Kharkiv direction. This morning, the group of forces north stated that the Russians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to establish complete control over the settlement by the name of Seminivka. Based on the report, we have adjusted the map. This is the situation by the end of the 22nd, and this is the situation by the end of the 23rd of January, and most likely in coming days, the Russians will also take under complete control the settlement of Gravskaya. This will allow the Russians to maintain the lines and to continue advancing further in the southern direction towards the villages of Losevka, Sosnovy Bar, and Shesterivka. And from these positions, Russians will be able to begin advancing in the eastern direction with the purpose to attack the city of Bilay Kolodys from the back. So this is the situation, and now we understand that this is a vital question for Ukrainians to have an energy ceasefire. But the main problem is that we see that the deal, telling the truth, it probably is not equal. The Ukrainians and the Western countries want to force the Russians to destroy, to attack the energy infrastructure in Ukraine, and in exchange, the European countries and Ukraine are ready to propose not to attack the Russian energy infrastructure. For example, during the previous 24 hours, pro-Ukrainian sources published this video, and here we can see how Ukrainians were attacking oil terminal in the area of the region of Krasnodar. The attack damaged technological pipelines at the berth, a number of tanks with vacuum gas oil and tanks where the fuel oil were also damaged. So this is something like an argument from the Ukrainian side. If you don't stop attacking the territory of Ukraine, we will destroy your infrastructure in the Black Sea. And another important update is coming from the Mediterranean Sea. Here we can see that, and according to media, French Navy boarding Shadow Fleet oil tanker in the Mediterranean today. That happened yesterday. The Grinch is a sanctioned crude oil tanker linked to Russia's Shadow Fleet used to evade post-2022 oil sanctions. So this is the deal. Western countries and Ukraine don't attack and don't destroy, don't seize Russian tankers and infrastructure. In exchange, the Russians stop bombing and attacking the territory of Ukraine. But something tells me that Russians may consider this deal unfair and not equal. Probably Russians will ask to unfreeze and to return some part of frozen assets, and maybe then they will accept the deal. But maybe even this is also not an option. Anyway, this evening we will understand everything, so we'll see what is going to happen in the United Arab Emirates. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching, subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.